This is the theme song for the Gear Podcast. Yeah. I forgot what he said. Oh, man. I've just got so surprised just before we started recording. Chris Brennan, like the man, the myth, the legend, has provided a new theme song for us. We got to give him a shout out. It's so good.
Just right before we were on air, Troy and I were... Look, I had heard it and I told Chris to forward it to Troy, but he's literally just listened to it now, and it's truly one of the great contributions to art that I've ever heard in my life. So welcome to the Gear Podcast. Shout out to Chris, you absolute legend, for doing that one. And shout out to Creed for creating our theme song.
Do you know what's so funny is that I watched a clip of them not like 30 minutes ago playing the Super Bowl, whenever that was, 20 years ago.
Wow.
Playing that song with guys on the ropes, the like silks and stuff, like flying around.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's sick.
Pretty good.
I just would love to get Mark Tremonti on this podcast eventually and have you sing that to him.
Yeah, I'll sing it to him. I'll sing Creed to Mark Tremonti. Who can we get? Who do we know that has a line to Mark Tremonti? Can we make that happen?
Let's make it happen. If anybody knows Mark, you know, we love Mark. We were talking about him last week. You know, he's amazing.
Yeah, Leon's basically ripped him off for Gear.
I've just basically used that template and kind of done my C- version of it, and Mark's like an A++ honor student. So yeah, that would be incredible. I mean, speaking of Gear, the MT100. I was watching Kyle Bull's clip. It's pretty Chunktown.
Yep. Yeah, I'd like to. What was I going to say? Oh yeah, I was just going to say on that quickly, because I'm making fun of you for indirectly ripping off Mark Tremonti's Gear. It's so funny because that happened completely independently. Just so happened that you bought a black PRS and then like a year and a half later
got into rectos.
It's just so funny that yeah. And
it's like, mate, here's a guy who had it figured out 15 years earlier.
Yep. You play with a good singer as well.
Yep.
I mean,
one of those guys.
Miles Kennedy, not Scott Stapp, but Scott's fine. He does his thing.
But, you know, Miles is Miles.
Yep. Anyway, Uncle
I told
Leon.
you the story. Before we get into that,
yep.
another tale from the road, Troy. When I went to Japan, I got to tour the Divisor Guitars factory. I've got one of they make many brands, one of which is Headway, and I've got a Headway acoustic guitar that I really like. And their rep was kind enough to invite us up. We went up into the mountains. Amazing. Like, had such a great time. And we went into their kind of finishing room, and there was maybe like 6 or 8 people like doing the final, you know, polish and clean and test on all the stuff that goes out of the factory. And they were just blasting some music, and I couldn't quite make it out. And I could just hear this guy kind of screeching and these like chug, chug, chug riffy things. And I was like, oh, this kind of sounds like Alter Bridge. I wonder who this singer is. They're like really, really good. I was like, this guitar tone's amazing. And as I kind of got closer, they were all giggling and like pointing at me because they were listening to Ragdoll.
Oh, nice.
I think it was like Letting Go or something like that. So, you know, I just couldn't make the song out, but I was like, yeah, this is great. Look at these people just like working on guitars, listening to some Alter Bridge or something. This is pretty cool. And then, yeah, I got there and I was like, do I like my own music? What's wrong with me?
I know. What you remember what we used on Letting Go, the amps?
Oh, there was definitely some chug-a-chug recto, but there was definitely some.
Hey?
Yeah, I think that was 80AMP1 into the power return of something.
Yeah, that was.
And it was real fun to mix, hey?
Yeah, it really struggled. Yeah, 80AMP1, of which, how many do we own now? I've got the rack. Can you see them? Oh, you can kind of see them.
I have 3.
I think I've got 4. Including the 2 and all that stuff in the classic. But yeah, we really don't use them that much. However, man, I think I told you months ago, plugging that into that Fryette power amp makes a pretty big difference, like unbelievable difference. So I think that's always been the issue. And do you remember we tried using that years ago on Dan Britton's thing?
Yeah.
Oh, we tried some rack stuff. We used what's that Soldano clone that you had?
I had a Russian Soldano clone,
Miasnikov. And I remember thinking like, oh, this will be the time to use it. We'll run that into that 9000 series power amp, and this will just be the sickest tone. Having at the time, I didn't really use that. And in fact, I didn't really use that 9000 series power amp very much at all. And it was fine, but it wasn't like blow your hair back. You'll never play another tone again in your life. And then for that podcast with Jason and Dave on the head first thing a couple of weeks ago. It was just like, yeah, this thing sucks. Like, what are they thinking? This 9000 series power amp. What are you doing, Marshall?
I feel like we always have to start with a shout out to Jason. The Bruce Egnator stream he did was amazing. Like when they were talking about JCM 900s, and Dave was just like, throw it in the bin.
In the bin. Who else do you want to shout out before we get started? And we before we get to talk, we got a couple of other things to talk about. But so we've already mentioned Kyle Ball. That's pretty cool. G'day, Kyle.
Yep. Kyle doing his thing. Jason doing his thing. I saw that Santiago Alvarez was going to be on Jason's live stream. I haven't watched it yet, but another friend of the podcast. Was it this morning or is it coming up this weekend?
I don't think it was on this morning because it wasn't on before. Yeah, I would have not done the work I needed to do because I would have been watching that podcast or that live stream.
Yeah, precisely.
Anyway, Leon, on to more pressing topics. Today is Friday, the 23rd? 24th of November.
But it's still the 23rd Thursday in the United States at the time of recording. So happy Thanksgiving, everybody. We are thankful for your continued support of the Gear Podcast.
And how'd you spend Thanksgiving there, Uncle Leon, with your American wife?
Well, with my American wife and our friends and, particularly co-host Troy Nababan and his family, we had a great Thanksgiving meal. I think it was the best one ever.
Oh, it was so good. Turkey. Like, what's that? I always forget the name of that sweet potato
sweet potato casserole. Paula Dean's green bean casserole. Yep. I think that was your best one ever as well.
Oh, thank you. I tried a little bit differently. I watched her make it. I watched a video of her making it, and it made a few things make sense. So that was pretty good.
It's just one of those things where, like, the flavor set in it, it's just everything you want in your mouth with all those other things. Making
butter, mushrooms, onions, soup, cheese.
The stuffing as well, like that stuffing that I made, I think I'm going to have to make every year.
I don't think I tried the stuff. Oh, maybe I did try the stuffing. That was in its own bowl, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I did try
it. Was like, it was a bready thing, for use of a better term. Yeah, Thanksgiving's awesome. Like, it's...
Yeah, pumpkin pie. Oh, my God.
Pumpkin pie. Yep. No, it's... Look, it's one of the many advantages of American culture just permeating through our veins. Our parents would be terrified because growing up as kids in the 90s, Halloween, American garbage. Fender amps, American garbage. What you want, mate? What you want is a Hungry Jack's Whopper and you want a Marshall.
What else could we export, mate? Sausage rolls? I feel that's not a thing that...
Sausage rolls, sausage sizzles, meat pies.
Meat pies. How do you like a sausage sizzle? Do you want a piece of bread or you want a bun?
Oh, either or, mate. It's the white bread sausage sizzle is pretty good. I feel like when I'm making my own sausage sizzle, I'll go with the soft hot dog bun. Yep. And, I like the onions. I like a bit of mustard. I'll even put mayo and tomato sauce.
I'm a barbecue sauce, man.
You know what else as well? Bit of pickled cabbage or some pickled jalapenos. Something pickled on there.
Look at you elevating the dish.
Oh, they don't have that elevating it, bro. Yeah, exactly. Bunnings need to up their game. But hey, speaking of Australian things, let's talk about Australian guitar manufacturers today. This was your idea, and I can't believe we haven't covered it yet. This was sparked by the fact we saw a few listings on Marketplace for a few guitars.
Yep, the one also importantly, on the weekend, I went and saw the Wiggles.
Yep.
Great concert.
Smashed it.
Yep. They did 5 shows in 2 days. The hardest working men and women and dinosaurs in sports. No, not sports entertainment, musical entertainment.
And, if there's one thing harder to entertain than Van Halen fans, it is children.
Yep. Now, my daughter lasted, I think, about 15 minutes before she was wriggling around in her seat, but that's pretty good. But I was walking back to the car and I got in there and checked Marketplace, as I do several times a day. And what pops up but a Belman guitar, Leon. A Belman guitar. What do you know about Belman guitars?
Which band used them? Was it the Butterfly Effect? Were they a Belman band? There was a few kind of Aussie rock and metal bands in the 2000s who were using Belman stuff. Yep. And look, the easy thing to say is, Troy will bring up some Belman stuff. The Albatross, I believe, was kind of the big one that a lot of people talked about. And I don't want to say it's the Australian PRS, but I will say it's like the Australian Eggle. Are you aware of Patrick Eggle guitars?
Oh, yeah. I've seen those before.
Yeah, they were kind of like... He was like the British PRS, right? And I remember seeing Eggles in like guitar books I'd borrow from the library. But Belman, to me, they were like, or the Australian Hamer, where
Mm.
They were just like, and especially the one you sent, like it looked like PRS.
Well, do you want to just share this screen, mate, and have a look at this
Yeah,
guy?
let's get
Have a
it
look at this guy
onto
and
the
see if it looks a little
stage.
bit familiar to you.
Look at
What
this.
does that look like?
Yeah, it's come on. I mean,
It's
lots of
basic.
other people kind of do this shape now.
Yeah, this is. I sort of remember this shape too.
Yes. So what one was
Which
that
is
called?
Doesn't say. Oh, no, Jettastar's probably a website. I don't know. I'm just on Google Images here, mate. So it's a bit sort of
But yeah, these are. I
like
don't
they're
think
cool
they're made
looking shapes.
anymore.
No, I reckon they stopped around 2008 ish. Did you ever see or play them?
I have seen one in the flesh. Tim at Williams Guitars had one. He was kind of
Right.
refurbishing, but I never played
Oh
it.
yeah. So the thing was with the reason why I guess we're talking about this and why I sent it to Leon, and I sort of not making fun of them as a company, but just the joke was like, I think between Leon and I is reading Australian guitar magazines in the early 2000s.
Yep.
Like this was one of those companies that was so smashed into your face as like the best guitar that you can buy. There would be like I remember like say 2002 Australian Guitar Magazine, like what is the best ranked equipment, and you'd have like a Belman guitar and a Maton Master Sound or something like that, which we could talk about that a little bit later. So yeah, they just seem to be not everywhere, but at least like thrown into the guitar media here that they were really important guitars.
And
but
hey,
I didn't.
good on Australian Guitar Magazine for doing that and actually like promoting some local stuff, because again, this was the magazine that like January on the cover, Hendrix, February on the cover, Mossy, March on the cover, Chris
Butler.
Chaney, or John Butler. It was like they only had 5 or 6 guys they could put on the cover of the magazine. They would just rotate them.
Yeah.
But the first time I ever heard about Hughes and Kettner was in Australia. And I know Hughes and Kettner are not an Australian company, but it was sort of like, yeah, I feel like Hughes and Kettner, Belman, Maton, there are a few other manufacturers we can talk about as well. But yeah, Belman, like, again, we kind of know nothing about them and we've done no research, but seeing that guitar, like getting a Belman Albatross was like, why would, and especially the mid 2000s when the Aussie dollar against the American dollar was crap, why would you spend $5,000 on a PRS when you can spend $2,000 on an Albatross? And, you're supporting a local builder. Obviously, if there's something wrong with your guitar, you don't have to ship it halfway across the world. There's a lot of incentive there, right?
Absolutely.
And clearly, excellent craftsmanship. And, they clearly cared. Yeah, here we go. He's going to bring up the guitar models on here.
Let's see if this is the continue with recommended cookies. Oh, okay. Let me see.
I just smashed the recommended cookies.
Oh, the Wayback Machine. Yeah, right. Double cutaway standard. Give me some pickies, mate. I want to see what they look
this
like.
is what we want.
Okay,
is this
hang
just
on. Let's just have a look
advertising?
at the... Yeah, just double cutaway standard. Let's just have a look at some of these features. So, like Les Paul sort of scale length, Queensland maple body, vintage pickup. So, I guess they're their own pickups. Rosewood fretboard. It's basically exactly what you want, but you can put go-to hardware on there.
Ebony fingerboard. That's a nice.
I feel like they were around $2,000. Does that feel about right to you? I feel
yeah,
like,
I want to say so.
Yeah, and as you say, a PRS guitar. I feel like, so in 2002, when all I wanted to do was buy a Paul Reed Smith because that's what Mike Einzinger from Incubus played, to get like a custom 24, there was two stores in Perth that had them. So one was Concept Music and the other was Music Park.
Yep.
And I think it was firstly Music Park, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, you go online and they'd be $5,500 to buy one for like a custom 24, which in today's money is, I don't know, like $9,000 or something probably. What are PRS's retail for? I feel like they haven't
probably a similar amount nowadays. Like
it's surprising that they haven't gone up as much. But to have an Australian alternative, an Australian, like specifically that it's coming from Australia is not the thing, but like something that looks kind of similar, has the beautiful flame top. Like it was the early 2000s, all the big rock bands were playing guitars that looked like that. So, you want to join the party, but you don't have the bucks for it. Like it was a pretty good option. So, yeah. I was always keen to try one at the time, but this is high school days, so it's not like I'm going to order one. And in fact, you'd never probably order a guitar anyway back then, and just hope it shows up and isn't terrible.
Exactly.
I remember seeing one in one time at Billy Hyde's here in Perth. They had one up on the wall in like probably this 2008 to 2009, sometime around there. And I reckon I played it, strummed it once, and I think it was okay. I feel like had a slightly thicker neck than I was expecting because a PRS is quite slim, but it was fine. But there's something about it where let me go back to this image and see if you feel me on this. So as I bring this image up, where the cutaways are, so they're a little shallower than on a PRS. Does that sort of look about right to you?
I believe so, yep.
Yeah, particularly the top one. This is being really silly and picky, but I feel like whatever's happening in this area of the guitar, something about that when it's not right feels weird to me.
It's a little bit uncanny valley, Yeah. And I get it. They can't, a PRS shape is a modern guitar archetype. So if you get not even, too close to it without being it, you're in that like... Ooh.
But I kind of feel like it's not so much a case of the look of it as much as the way it feels. Like there's something about like the way your thumb, this has been really picky, your thumb bumps up on this part right here about where the 21st, 22nd fret is, just kind of feels a bit weird to me. Whereas like PRS really got that right, at least to the way that I like to play them. It's not like there are like all guitars have this sort of shape because obviously Telly doesn't like it.
You know what I do like is in the top left, that black guitar with the more like asymmetric, the Telly, like that I'm more into than the
I think that's
PRS
the Albatross
looking one. So that's the Albatross. That's cool. That's its own thing on there. Les Paul, Telly, little bit Wolfgang, but it's a bit, it's got more of the carve thing going on there. Like that I can get behind.
It reminds me of those Talman guitars.
Yes, actually. And for curiosity, if you want to go to a store and just pull a guitar off the rack and you want to buy a PRS, like a CE24 is about $4,500 new.
Is it
and
really?
A Special's more like $6,000, and a DGT is more in the like $7,000 range. Oh. Yeah.
Okay, they have gone up a little bit. What do you say, Cus? Oh, actually, you know what? Because I reckon 2 or 3 years ago, I played at Manny's. I played this custom 24 that was just like unreal. It was kind of this like purpley, blue, pinky sort of thing. It felt so good, but it was like $6,500, and yeah, that's just not something I'm willing to shell out at the drop of a hat, unfortunately.
Yep, big old chunk of change.
The old chunk of change. So yeah, these guitars, man, I'm not sure how many of them are still around. Like that one that I sent you, that's the first one that I've seen pop up, just in a general sense. They might maybe pop up on different marketplace groups or something, but I've never seen one appear on Gumtree.
But everything I've heard about them, fantastic, like really, really well made, really, really well put together. So there was a forum I used to spend a lot of time on called Aussie Guitar Gearheads. And yeah, they often talk about the Belman stuff, and there are quite a few. They've actually got a kind of registry of Aussie-made guitars on there, which I did have a look at, and there were some names that I saw. But we should definitely go right back to the beginning. I don't want this to be like a history of Maton guitars, but you can't talk about Australian-made guitars without talking about Maton, because they basically wrote the book, right?
Yep. What's your feeling about Matons, mate? Do you like them? Do you hate them?
Well, I owned
across the board. I don't mean just like not just electrics, but yeah, go on.
Yeah. So their acoustic guitars are great. I owned an 808 that I bought and loved the way that thing played. That was my like first, when I went and bought a serious acoustic guitar, I bought one of those, and it got stolen.
I remember.
So it's out there somewhere, but that was a really, really nice guitar. Sounded great, easy to play. They make some excellent acoustic guitars. The electrics, I mean, look, they've made all sorts of things. Yeah, let's bring some of them up and take a look, because like the master sound was really the big one. Again, like
well,
this
here
is
you go.
it.
We talked about the Wiggles, so that's the first one that pops up.
So you've got that. Didn't Josh Homme play some Matons for a while as well?
Yeah, I reckon maybe it looked something. Oh, maybe it didn't look like that. I'll have a look at it. Maton.
So they've got their own thing going on, very much to me in the like sort of leaning towards the Gretsch, Duesenberg kind of, offset guitars.
Yeah, it's like slightly more like that. I mean, this is the Josh Homme sort of guy. So yeah, you're right. It kind of has that similar. You mentioned the Wolfgang before. It's got a similar little top guy there, which is quite interesting.
It's definitely a bit more like Art Deco like 50s, 60s
Yeah,
thing, you know?
this classic sort of master sound shape. This is the one that I think of. When it comes to early 2000s guitar magazines, like I remember they did like them. Well, this is the MS 500, Master Sound 500, and there was like the 2000 as well. And they were like, they did like a budget breakdown on this one issue. It's like, it must have been one of the first guitar magazines I ever got because it's so burned in my brain. It was like, what's the best guitar under $1,000? And it was, you know, they listed three of them. Number one was the Maton Master Sound 500. And
So they were under $1,000 Australian. That's impressive, man.
I think it was like
especially back then
or something.
Yeah, that's really impressive, you know, compared to what a Les Paul would cost or, you know, any equivalent thing.
And then the 2000, I think it was like the best ranked guitar under like $3,000 or $2,500 or something from memory. So I always had that in my mind. It was probably like, I remember playing one for the first time in Zenith. No, not Zenith. What's the music store that was in the city? Was that Zenith?
Yep, Zenith. That was the one.
So again, for those of you that don't live in Perth, if you were in high school in like the early 2000s or 2000s,
that was a pilgrimage, hey.
Yeah, and you wanted to just go to a guitar shop because mum didn't want to drive you that day. The only option you had was to get a bus or a train into the city and go to one of the two music stores that were there. And which one did I say? Was it Zenith?
Zenith, yeah.
Yeah. You had Zenith and you had Clef Music.
Yeah, was Zenith was it in town or was it in Claremont?
Oh, mate, so this is why I might be getting them mixed up because there's one in Claremont. They're all related. I think it's like the same people.
But they were old school, like
Musgroves.
Musgroves, yeah. Like
Musgroves.
Stuff. They sold heaps of sheet music and all the instruments were like in glass cases and please do not touch.
Yeah, they had like Les Pauls in there for like $11,500. And then they have some other things like a Jackson Dinky in there. It was a kind of like odd collection, but I think because it was in the heart of the city, someone told me it was just like, yeah, we get heaps of lawyers and, you know, professionals just coming in on their lunch break and dropping like 10 grand on a guitar. So that's why stuff was so expensive. You know what they had in there as well in Musgroves? Because again, there was two shops. Musgroves was like the nice guitar shop. They had an Engel Richie Blackmore.
I remember that for years and years and years, right?
Yep. So it was really funny, but like I reckon I played a Master Sound in there the first time. And I picked it up. They had like one of those displays where it was just like a big stand with probably like 20 guitars, bam, 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 like wasn't on a wall. It was like an actual stand. And I picked one up because, again, read them in the guitar magazines. And I think it was this red guy. This was the one that I really remember the look of. And it was okay. Like I didn't mind it. I was kind of surprised because it didn't really sound like any other guitar that I'd played. And spec wise, I'm not that certain about it, but they've got some weird stuff. Like, what's this guy? Like, what is this a pick? There's like, looks like there's a
they had that kind of interesting pickup selector. And I just sent you a link in the chat here, Troy, where you can open up. There's a website called guitarnerd.com.au, and they've got a great little gallery of just different Matons.
Here you go.
Like, there's some wild shapes on there.
And you know what? I just remembered too.
And their basses as well. They had some cool stuff.
Do you know the first Maton I ever played? It was not one of these Master Sound ones. It was a 60s semi hollow, like a 335-esque sort of thing.
Yep.
I'll see if they've got a picture of the related thing. It was really cool, man. And there used to be a guitar shop in the Subiaco markets that I bought. You know my Ibanez Les Paul, the gold one? I got that there because my grandma used to have a market stall like literally across from this guitar shop. I remember buying a DS1 in there when I was in high school, which
they had
since moved.
That's so funny.
They had all these this shop. They had all these like, you know, vintage sort of guitars, and one was this cool Maton, and it was really cool. I still remember it had a really slim neck, and quite a slim body for the size of it, but it felt really cool because we don't want to go through the whole history, but they've been around for a bloody long time.
Yeah, I feel like there's probably a Maton expert out there we could get on the podcast and just do an episode about Maton guitars. So I don't want to go too deep into it. But yeah, they're sort of doing the like, you know, you can see the elements of companies like Mosrite and National and Vox and Burns in there. So yeah, they were kind of like, you know, keep in mind the 60s in Australia. Like someone had to do this. Someone had to manufacture this stuff locally, and they were very much the company. And we can
I was going to say, before we move on to another one, mate, like, what's your vibe on the acoustics? So you said you had the 808. That was a cool guitar.
What other acoustics do they make? I'm like, everything I've played by them is pretty decent. And it's okay, like we do a lot of acoustic duo gigs, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like you can flip a coin in Perth. If there's someone playing an acoustic guitar in a pub, they're either playing a Maton acoustic guitar or a Cole Clark acoustic guitar. And we'll get to Cole Clark in a sec because there's a connection there.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're sort of the standards here, aren't they?
Pretty much. Like, they are so... Because, okay, just a Cole Clark acoustic guitar, which maybe we'll get to those next, but I think they retail for, like, in, say, America or elsewhere in the world, the equivalent of what, like, a Gibson would be here. It's just... Which makes sense. It's an import guitar. But, they... Like, to reference my 2001, 2002 Guitar Magazine, I think you could get a Maton acoustic for under $1,000 back then. Well, I'm sure you probably still can, of not their highest quality things, but are they all made in Australia? Those cheaper ones as well?
You know what? I'm not 100% sure, but I know that they were one of the first companies using like Australian Blackwood and Queensland Maple, which my dad and I have this joke. Like we've got. When I was really getting into guitars when I was younger, he's kind of got this almanac of like wood species. And every Australian thing that would be like, Queensland maple, no, not a true maple. So they're all like indigenous species to Australia and they resemble, say, the like American species, but they're distinct. So that was the other aspect of it. Like a lot of these guitars were made with the timber that was kicking around. So, you're looking at like the 60s Fenders and Gibsons might be using a lot of, American ash or alder, or they're using like Central American timbers or South American timbers, your rosewoods and mahoganies and things like that. But in Australia, like one thing is like there's so many different climate zones that you get species which kind of resemble like the more like popular mainstream species from overseas, right? So like Australian Blackwood, it might be an acacia species. So it's like related to koa, and it has a lot of like similar properties, or there are specific types of trees that grow in the desert here, where, you like cut into them and they're like black, like ebony or like rosewood-esque. So yeah, there's a lot of, and I say this because like my dad has spent a lot of time building guitars out of his shed, and he's made them never on like a commercial scale, but as a custom builder for a long time. So he's had people come in and be like, I want a guitar that's all Australian timbers. And he's made quite a few of them where you get these like really cool Australian woods that resemble rosewood, or they resemble, figured maple, but they're not.
Yeah. Has he ever made a Jarrah guitar?
Yep. Jarrah, heavy.
Not a tone wood, right?
Well, depends how much you want to get into the tone wood thing, but it's sort of like if you think mahogany's heavy and dense, like Jarrah far more so. It's it's great in a ceiling and it's great on a floor. As a guitar, maybe not so much, but he made a guitar out of solid Jarrah burl for one of his clients when I was like a teenager, and literally something you'd make a table out of, and he cut the top off and hollowed it right out, and that was really, really cool project. So yeah, well, I mean, Bill Todd, guitar builder, that's its own little thing here in WA. He made a guitar for guitar neck for Hank Marvin, and Hank lives in Perth, and so he's done some stuff. I've got some of his guitars here, and I really like playing them. But so Maton, the spin-off, like 2000s, Cole Clark, and I think so. Is it Brad Cole? That feels like a name.
That
might be some like
Clark. It's two guys, right? One's Cole.
That might be some like Geelong player from the mid 2000s though. Brad Cole played 53 games, opened a pub in Kalgoorlie,
and I think they're ex-Maton people as well.
Yeah, and look, I don't want to engage in gossip here, but I have heard some gossip related to the fallout there, and it's funny. Like the perceived pettiness. It's like anything else with, it's a bit Zildjian Symbols, like if you're familiar with that story. So anyway,
I don't think I know the Zildjian Symbols story, but maybe we'll talk about it another time.
Two brothers, and then one there was a huge falling out, and one started Sabian, I believe. So Yeah.
Just
It's a
unrelated.
saga, man.
Unrelated. I'm trying to buy a drum kit. There's like three possible kits I could buy right now. I've got money burning a hole in my pocket. I want to spend it.
Yep.
But yeah, this one guy just has not replied to me
Come
about
on,
a
mate.
specific kit. And I don't want to be a pest about it. I should ask Michael Torin what he would do if someone says that they'll check something and they'll be back next week. How long do you wait before you... It's been a week now.
Yep.
So is that okay?
I reckon it is time to hit him up again.
Yeah. But yeah, I was going to say with the Cole Clarks, again, I remember seeing them in these guitar magazines and everyone raving about them. They were about the same price as the Matons, but I sort of noticed as I was doing live sound in the late 2000s, a lot of people had both of those manufacturers guitar, or both those brands of guitars,
Yep.
and the fat ladies, the Cole Clark fat ladies,
Yep.
always sounded really good when I worked with them live. And then there was a period where like 4 different people had like a Fat Lady 1 or a Fat Lady 2 that it was like they'd bring it into the studio for some reason and I'd have a strum and went, man, this thing feels really, really good. Like if I ever need an acoustic guitar, then I should just buy a Fat Lady.
They quickly became the standard. Hey, they very much just like, kind of had Maton. Well, like 90% of the acoustic guitars people here had, and like 10% were Taylors and Martins and Gibsons. And it's like Cole Clark just came along and were like, yeah, we're just going to gobble up like 45%.
Yep.
Cheers. Because
like
that pickup system sounds amazing when you plug it into just a desk and turn it up.
Like, because, I've got this Guild. It's a D25M. That was my old man's. And that thing is so good. It's such a beautiful sounding guitar. It records amazingly. And I trashed it because I was a dumb kid. I didn't take care of it. But yeah, it doesn't have a pickup in it. And I just don't really want to take it out of the house. I don't want to thrash it at these gigs, despite how nice it sounds with a mic on it and just to sit and play it. So I said, when I was looking for an acoustic, I was looking for a Cole Clark. And I played a bunch of different ones, man. They're all very different.
Do you want to bring some Cole Clark, maybe bring their website up and we can take a look at what they're doing? Because I also saw during the week someone listed one of their hollow body Strat style guitars, which I'd completely forgotten about.
Let me see. Here's the website. Currently loading up. But yeah, I remember it was actually Richo, friend of the channel, Richo. That there's Jack Johnson.
There you go. Are you gonna sing a bit of Taylor for us?
I was just about to. I couldn't remember how it goes.
How many kids at your school, the only thing they could play was Baba, and you just be like, give me my guitar back.
We all know that song.
Oh,
Let's not
yeah.
talk about it. The Fat FL Dreadnought. This is the one I've got. Let's just click this one because I own it, so it must be the best. Oh, mine looks a bit different. They've changed it.
They've changed a few things recently. Hey, we've got maybe like whatever the kind of first popular run was.
It looks more like this guy, I think.
Yeah.
I think it's Blackwood back and sides, and I think it's a spruce top. Does that sound right? Because you and I have the same one, hey?
We have the same one, yep.
Yeah. But so I was going to say, Richo put me onto Cole Clark's because his one, when he was in the studio like a long time ago, that was like the first one when I sat and played it. I was like, man, I got to get one of these things. This feels unreal. And he also made the comment of like, they take a little bit to play in, which I hadn't. It's kind of like that thing, they talk about violins where these old violins have a certain sound and, Who knows if that's true or not. But like his one felt really good. Had it for about 5 years. I got mine 2011 because, we started doing all these duo gigs and I needed something reliable. And man, I tell you what, like plugged in, it is just always, always, always great. And I don't have to do anything to it. It doesn't really feed back unless I do something stupid like play with a bass octave very loud or put too much distortion in it.
That thing has paid for itself many, many times over for me.
And so like I've got a little Taylor GS Mini that I bought a couple of years ago thinking that I would gig with, just because it's a smaller body. And it's got one of the magnetic pickups in it. And you can put whatever pickup in it, like a lot of people suggest getting the LR bags things and all this stuff.
Yeah.
But that's adds. Man, I paid like $350 for this GS Mini, which is ridiculous. But to put a pickup in it was going to cost about the same amount as the guitar, and I just didn't want to do it. So I played like one set of gigs with the standard pickup, and it was just dog shit. So I never really gigged with it again. And now it's just like a bit of a home beater sort of thing. Same as that, you know, the Yamaha Sparkle guitar that I have,
Yep.
which I won't. Oh, should I get it?
Go on, get the Blinger caster, mate. Let the people see it on there. And while you're doing that, I'll entertain them all with a story that happened with my Cole Clark, where I was doing a duo gig in like January or February, so like peak summer here. And, you know, doing the thing, you're strumming some acoustic guitar, you're kind of like hitting the top of the guitar.
All right,
and
Leon,
then,
let me just replay.
Oh, here he is. And anyway, I just like cracked the entire top of the guitar in the heat and humidity. And it's still cracked, but it still plays fine. So check this out.
Oh, you're talking about your Cole Clark?
Yeah, how I cracked the top. But it's still going.
So
anyway, show the wonderful people of the internet this amazing looking guitar.
Before I bring it up, I'll just say that this guitar caused the start of my back problems in about 2016. But yeah, this was just a fun project that I did. So have a look at this guy. Oy.
Oh my gosh.
So, and this is just a special message for my student Jess, if she ever happens to listen to this, because you know she and I both share a love for Taylor Swift. So if you're listening to this on audio, go check out the video at whatever time this is, 36 minutes or something in, and you'll see the guitar. But yeah, this is I think it was about 800 individually placed rhinestones on this guitar, or maybe it was 1,200. I can't remember. But I did that, and I did the headstock as well. And it's purely because I had nothing else to do, mate. I think I'd finished recording the Ragdoll Back to Zero album and I had like nothing to do with my time. So anyway, that's sorry, as I come back to the microphone, that's a like Japanese Yamaha FG 420 or something. And I put a Fishman pickup in it, like it's got the magnetic pickup and the mic on the inside, and it's a very expensive pickup. Like it's I think, I mean, maybe I'm talking out my ass, but I think it's like a flagship Fishman pickup, and it sounds not as good as the Cole Clark, which was such a bummer because it's just, you know what you get. You plug it in and it just sounds like a guitar, and then you do your gig and you leave. And this is like no pedals, no like fancy DIs or anything. On the I've experimented, as again, slight detour. I've experimented on the Fractal and on like the AX8 and on the HX Stomp with running like clean tube preamps and stuff. To give it a bit of life, and it doesn't really enhance the tone that much. Like I've had a few moments like, oh yeah, it sounds way better, and then I end up turning it off. It like makes it sound too bright or whatever. And like, you know, I know you've experimented with the acoustic guitar IRs on your stuff. Do you still do that?
Nah, it's, you know what I found is like, big detour, right? But you know, acoustic guitars with undersaddle, piezo, however you want to say it. Mm-hmm. No one likes that sound, but that sound is ubiquitous, and it's what people expect out of a PA when they see a duo or something in a pub, right? Like, it is no one's favorite sound, but don't change it now, because it's kind of become, for better or for worse, it's become the standard thing of like, you plug your Maton or your Cole Clark into like a Yamaha PA at your local pub, and it has all that quacky crap in it, but often you're playing in a duo with just like a singer or maybe someone who also plays guitar. It's super percussive, and it sort of like fills in the same space that like, you know, a percussion instrument would fill in. So yeah, it's not my favorite sound, but what I found is like you go through and like very finely notch out like probably like 8K and 1200 to 800 hertz. There's like a few frequencies. And then what I do on the Fractal is use a multi-band compressor.
Oh yeah.
And I forget the crossover points, but it's sort of like I use that as like a really coarse EQ, where it's sort of like it's compressing everything. And then if you're like, oh, I need more mids, I'll just turn that particular section of that thing up. It's not bad. It stops the real, like it just takes all the peaks out, and it stops you like overloading the PAs. So yeah,
they get quacky sometimes and a bit nasty, like those sort of pickups. But
like it never sounds great. It just sounds like a plugged-in acoustic guitar, and it is what it is. And
man, like the IRs, it's a great idea in theory, but there's always that like slight modulated chorusy sound. It's not a chorus.
Yeah.
I just think of it sound like modulated. when I hear
There's
it.
heaps of comb filtering going on, right? And like phase crap. Where it works well, I think, is if you've got an electric guitar and you want an acoustic style sound. Like I know Alex Lifeson for the Rush stuff, like he used an acoustic IR on his undersaddle pickups on his Les Paul for their last tour. And it was literally just a tone match.
Okay, well, that's cool.
And to an acoustic guitar, so like a Jackson Browne recording.
Right.
And in the context of a full band, it sounds close enough, but it's why try hard, anyway. So the Cold Clark stuff, they're acoustics is sick.
Yeah, they're really good. I'll say it's like it doesn't record as well.
Right.
The reason I bought the one I bought was that I went and played probably a dozen of them. This is in 2011. And I wanted something that still had like presence to it.
Yeah.
When I strummed it. And I found that guitar really did it. It's like when I hit a G chord, I could feel the whole thing like move air.
Yeah.
And I loved that about it.
As it should.
When I've tried to record and just quickly, if you're ever recording acoustic guitars, I don't think this is a controversial thing to say. Just don't fucking worry about the pickup. It sounds like shit. Like just put a mic on it, put one mic around the 15th fret. It'll probably sound fine. And you don't have to do anything more complicated. Despite what everyone wants. It's a fucking mono instrument, everybody. You're not going to get that much width out of it with a stereo miking technique. You can do some MS if you want to try that, but man, just fucking, it's not that hard. Don't use pickup.
Exactly.
Use one mic. But sorry, just quickly, the Cold Clark versus my Guild is very different recorded. Like the Guild is just, you don't have to do fuck all to it. The Cold Clark is like, it's a bit of just tweak some stuff up here. Yeah. So I'll just say that. And I haven't tried their like super, like even just looking through the website just then, there's like clearly some high end stuff. I've not really tried that. I've always enjoyed just playing their guitars, and there's been an issue like because I had the Acoustasonic as well for a while, which just if anyone wants to buy one, let me know because I got to get rid of that thing. But it's number 2 because the first one had some issues. That was cool, and that I guess is using like we're talking the IR stuff, because otherwise how are you going to get that sort of sound? But when that died and I went back to using the Cold Clark, it's just the sound was so much better. Like, I'm not sure how much of that is me just missing the guitar that I've played for 10 years before that, or it just is like it isn't right. And I as much as I wish I could go back to something else, that is the one for me. And quickly, last thing on Cold Clarks, the electrics. Have you played many of the electrics before?
Oh, like 10 years ago. They were fine.
Yeah, they do like a Strat and a Telly, or they did like a Strat and a Telly sort of thing, and they were cool. It's just weird, like I don't know, outside of Fender and like the really high end stuff, like a Sir or an Anderson or something like that. I just don't know if clones of those guitars really interest me that much.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, they're fine. I did the Melbourne Guitar Show earlier this year, and after my it was funny because I did back-to-back clinics. I did a fractal clinic and I did a Boss clinic, and the Boss clinic was basically like how to use the Katana to record, and the fractal clinic was like how to sound like me. So it was just Grease Town. It was really, really good. And like shout out to Andrew at Independent Music and Ed at Boss for getting me over, because I had the best time and the clinics were awesome. But after me was Lloyd Spiegel demoing the Cold Clark. They do like an acoustic guitar that has a humbucker in it for electric sounds, and like Lloyd is amazing. Like he's just an Aussie bloke who happens to be like a virtuoso, like guitar player, singer, and there's a video of him doing Comfortably Numb and like looping live, and I think a lot of people who like this would really, really dig it. But I know he's their sort of in-house QC. Like he's basically the like artist in residence where they make stuff and then he's like, oh yeah, this is pretty cool.
That's cool. Melbourne Guitar Show. So we're going to do it next year? Like you'll probably
we should.
Should I come?
Yeah. You'll have a fat time. You'll love it.
I haven't been to Melbourne since like 2011, I think. I've been on the east, apart from Adelaide. That's like middle, so that doesn't really count.
Adelaide doesn't
middle
count.
In the country, not middle, as in like how people say things are mid these days. Adelaide's fine.
Adelade's like East Perth, basically.
Oh no, it is mid. What am I talking about?
Yeah.
Fuck South. No, I don't mean that. Yeah, South Australia's fine.
It's totally fine. Anyway, let's pivot to there's there's a universe of like smaller builders, right? There's one rather large manufacturer we're going to get to now who's probably like become numero uno. But I want to talk about some like specifically Perth stuff. And one that came to mind when we were discussing this was Formentin guitars. And so Rob Formentin, I forget if it's his wife or a sibling, but they used to work with my dad at ECU. Yeah, so that's like the connection. And, you know, Bill, famously critical of many, many things, only ever had nice things to say about Rob's lutherie as well. He's like, nah, Rob gets it. So, and I wanted to bring up, you know, especially offset guitars. So ask him about how he feels about a Maton master sound. But I recorded an
friend
entire...
of the channel, Luke Semenkovic. They're
There's Luke the Duke, right there.
And so what have we got here? Yeah,
so
look
kind
at
of
that. That's a cool looking Strat. I like
kind
that.
of super stratty, yeah.
Yeah.
I recorded an entire album on a Formentin Super Strat, the Project X album that I did, the studio they did it at. The guy just had a Formentin Strat, and I showed up and I was like, what do you want me to do? And he's like, we'll just do everything DI. And I was like, is this guitar in tune? And he was like, yep, that's the studio guitar. And I just played the whole album on it. It was really good. Kind of reminded me, you know, like Charvel-esque to play. That's the way I would describe it. Less more like Charvel Jackson, more like classic 80s vibe. I mean, you can see the headstock on there and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's a cool looking headstock. I don't know if I've played them or not. I've seen them around a few times. I've seen them for sale, but I don't
see that Strat with the white pickguard and black pickups. Just to your right. Yeah, a little bit to go
right.
the other direction.
The other right.
Yeah, that one. That's exactly what the guitar looked like.
Right.
So kind of like an Adrian Smith Jackson or something.
Yep.
Yeah.
Mate,
so and
elevated. It's an elevated.
It is.
Stratocaster.
It's an elevated Stratocaster. Exactly. So
that's your pickles. That's your pickled onions.
Exactly. That's the elevated hot dog. So yeah. And Rob for a long time. Actually, I don't know anything. Maybe if someone knows more about Formentin guitars, or if they own a Formentin guitar, there's quite a few people. But that kind of segues into arguably Australia and definitely Western Australia's biggest guitar export. And I'll close this window so you can bring up some of their stuff, which is Ormsby guitars.
Oh, yeah.
And Perry has been basically gone from like a dude in a shed to, you know, one of the biggest manufacturers in Australia, or probably like the biggest, because his stuff is very, very popular, and like it's still incredibly novel to me to just be watching something on the internet and you're like, yeah, that's an Ormsby guitar. So yeah, he went from kind of doing custom one-offs to like he's got a very recognizable thing and very popular in kind of the like metal guitars. The first fan fret multi-scale thing I ever saw was, what was that? So the first time I ever properly hung out with Ben Wilson, Troy, our good friend and friend of the podcast, and he's definitely listening to this, and he will remember this well, was Mojo's in Fremantle. They did a mini guitar show. So it was Ormsby, I think Ellis Guitars as well, who is another WA maker, makes really, really nice acoustic guitars. And man, a few other things. But yeah, Perry had his first like 6-string multi-scale. And I went and played it there. And just like hung out with Ben all day. This dude from Bunbury who said he knew Randy Rhoads' mum. And I was like, sure you do.
True story, he does.
True story, he does. And yeah, that was like, I just had like a fat time hanging out with Ben. But yeah, and now it's kind of, we've seen this stuff like permeate the progressive guitar space, if you want to call it that. So multi-scale, 7 strings, 8 strings. The first 8-string I ever saw and played was a guitar that Perry made. Yeah, so right in that wave of like metal stuff, which I find incredibly funny. And you know, I don't feel like I'm outing anyone here, but like Perry just loves hair metal, and that's kind of like how I got to know him. When I was 18, I drove down to his workshop in, where was he? Beaconsfield, so south of Fremantle.
Yeah.
And just kind of like showed up, and like I'm wearing a headband, leather jacket, cowboy boots.
This must be peak 2007 Leon Todd. 2006, Leon Todd.
Yeah, it was 2006. I was 18.
So
And
boots? You wearing the boots?
wearing the boots. It was
Mark's driving
February.
down there?
No, my mate Swano did. We went down together. Shout out to Swano if he happens to be listening.
Shout out to Margs as well. Leon's
Yeah,
mum.
shout out to my mum who just drove me around the city until I got my license when I was 21. Unlike everyone else. So, yeah, mum's all right, but yeah, drove down there. It was like 40 degrees. And just knock on the door, and he's like, "Who are you? What are you doing here?" kind of thing. And yeah, he let us in, showed us around. I think I bought some pickups or something off him. That was like the reason I went down there. But yeah, it was like a dude in a shop, just making stuff and doing a lot of custom orders. And we just talked about Rat and Skid Row and what was the other band they were really into? Shotgun Messiah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that sort of not I like 80s rock. Bon Jovi are really good. It was sort of like, we were just like, no. People who think Bon Jovi are like the peak of 80s, they're wrong. It's Shotgun Messiah, bro. Harry Cody. So yeah, and I don't know what sort of numbers Perry is doing, but like very, very impressive numbers, especially for his import stuff.
Because he went on Shark Tank or something, didn't he?
Yeah, he did, and I believe he did. What? Look, well, I'm gonna have to look this up, and I can't remember if it's
how it happened.
But it was like, whatever it was pretty successful. So that was in 2016. Because I think World Music Instruments, so the people who are making PRS SE, and I don't know if they're still building his overseas stuff. But yeah, man, it's like,
They're the first affordable sort of multi-scale guitars, right?
Yeah, because what are they called? The Hype GTR? And I feel like
right.
in Australia, they're in the $1,500 range. And especially you see them used for $1,100-$1,200. So, what you might pay for a used DGT SE, and you get multi-scale, it's a very modern metal looking guitar. And then he still does the, again, I'm not involved in the business at all, but I know he was quite successful with the kind of batch build thing where it's like, hey, we've got 10 spots. Oh, yeah. And if you want one of these, you register, and when they're gone, they're gone. And I'm fairly certain he still does that. So, right. I played, when was it? The Margaret River guitar show, Strings Attached. He makes a headless guitar called the Goliath that I really like. That was probably the best one out of all of those that I played. And it's. Did you ever see his old website?
Oh, no.
I just remember it was one of those things where it was just impossible to navigate because it was a mid-2000s website where it was every photo was high quality. What was that?
Angel Fire, one of those ones?
Yeah, Angel Fire, wow.
GeoCities?
Yeah. What was the .tk?
Oh, I don't know.
Remember those websites that the savvy kid in year 10 would build his own website?
I remember being...
It must have been GeoCities.
Yeah, I made a GeoCities website in year 10 with who's better? Is it Crash Bandicoot or Mario? That was my year 10 website. I want to hope that still exists on the internet somewhere, but I very much doubt it.
Yeah. I'm just looking through the artist roster on Ormsby's website as well, which is always kind of, some kind of metric for success. So Dino Cazares is on there as a signature artist. Did you remember Psychroptic?
What's Psychrop? I don't remember that name.
Tasmanian death metal band.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, and Joe Haley played Perry's guitars. I'm fairly certain he has a signature thing. But something came up about them the other day. One of my students mentioned them, and I was watching Joe Haley play guitar. He's doing all this kind of Brett Garsed fusion stuff, very, very, very impressive playing. But yeah, if you go and look at their artist roster, it's it's legit, man. It's it's gone from, he's actually lived the dream of being a custom builder to being a proper brand.
Yeah, good on you, Perry. It used to be around the old forums back in the day. I've seen him around a few times. We've never really spoken, but congratulations, mate. You're kicking
Ships
ass.
in the night.
Ships in the night. Likes White Line. I like White Line.
Yeah.
End of
And
story.
I remember Graham Greene playing his stuff. That's kind of how
That's
I
right.
came across it. And, he had like a green guitar. So
Is that because his surname is Green?
I'm not sure, Troy. Do you reckon there's some kind of crossover happening there?
My goodness. I just threw my hair tie. It's gone now. I don't know where. Oh,
What was the band called? Ice Tiger?
Ice Tiger, yeah.
Yep. I think there's
Bit
still some
before
of
our
those clips up
time.
there. Yeah, way before our time, but people still speak glowingly of them. So Ice Tiger and Trilogy, that was a band.
Man, Allegiance came up twice last week in different
Really?
conversations. Yeah. Again, before our time, but
Wasn't Jason in in the not Dennis's, Basil's Footy Show house band? Because that was Slim Jim,
really?
hey? Yeah,
Oh,
I'm pretty
yeah, it
sure
was.
all those Basil's Footy Show was Jason Stone playing lead guitar.
I don't think I know him. I know his name, but I don't think I've ever met him before.
If Jason happens to be watching this, I know because I've seen him pop up on my channel before. Like, great player. And yeah, for anyone with a passing interest in Australian heavy metal, I guess you could say Allegiance were like, look, they were Perth's Metallica. They were like a legit thrash band. But I think they opened for Pantera when Pantera came to Perth. So yeah, they
Literally,
were.
like last week, mentioned to me as, oh, who was that band? Perth's Metallica. And
Yeah,
I was
there you
like,
go.
Oh, you talking about Allegiance? And yeah.
So I was speaking to one of the guys who was in that band and about recording an album. This was years ago. And they were basically like, yeah, we went to a studio and said, what does it cost to record an album? And, it was like 20 grand or something. And they were like, okay, no worries. So he's like, what we did was we did 2 gigs at the Raffles, $10 a head, 1,000 people each night, 20 grand. Took it to the studio, went, here's your 20 grand, let's record an album. So back in the day when people went to shows.
Yeah. I wonder where that would have been. Maybe Planet?
I suspect so, yeah. There's a whole, probably involving that desk, hey?
Yeah. Planet's a whole story, man. Like, not my story to tell, but, Planet burnt down a long time ago. So
I see.
That was 20 years ago. Like, so let's just leave it at that, hey?
Yeah. The other builder that I wanted to bring up, because I finally got to meet them at the Melbourne Guitar Show, is Cilia Guitars, Charles. And Charles is like, let's find his website, Troy, and bring it up, because he makes some really nice stuff. So this ties into, remember the band Syndicate?
Oh, yeah. I remember Syndicate.
Yeah.
So at whatever, the Civic Hotel.
Yeah, we opened for them. The second gig we ever did as a 3-piece was opening for Syndicate. And I remember their guitar player, Chris, pulled out like 2 custom guitars. And I was like, man, what are these? And they were ridiculous. Like, oh, yeah, these are Charles Cilia guitars. And
Wasn't he? He was on, like, working for one of the guitar magazines, wasn't he?
I believe so, yeah. Yeah, Chris Peterson. Shout out to Chris if he happens to be watching this. And I think I'm not sure what Chris is up to. I know he was doing a online teaching thing for a while, and just people we've met. Anyway, if you bring up Charles's custom gallery on here, this is, we were talking about Belman right at the start.
Could not find the page I'm looking for. All right, here we go. Custom gallery. Boom.
Like this,
cool.
That nothing looks off about his guitars at all. Like they play amazingly well. And like I said, I got to meet Charles, and about a month before the guitar show, I'll bring this up. I'll put this on the stage. I got a message because I was selling a piece of rack gear. I think my Roland Reverb, and he was like, "Yeah, I'll buy that Reverb. I'm putting a rack together." And I was like, "I know this name. Like, where do I know this name from?" And like, box this thing up, sent it, and I was like, "I really hope this arrives." Yeah, like.
These are beautiful looking guitars, man.
Beautiful looking guitars, exactly. And like his inlay work is,
oh yeah, that's nice,
unbelievable. Like it's got the right mix of stuff on there. You know what I mean? Anyway, and I just didn't hear anything from this dude who bought this Roland Reverb. I'm like, I hope it arrived in one piece. And then I was at the guitar show, and he was like, "Leon," and I was like, "Oh, I know this name." And it like all the dots connected to like Syndicate. And then selling this reverb, and people telling me, I know Andrew at Independent Music raves about Charles's stuff as well, and they had a few of his guitars on the fractal stand they were doing. Lovely dude, like cannot say, I would really, really like to get a chance to just like hang out with him, and maybe we should get him on the podcast, Troy.
Let's do it.
Light bulb moment. So
Hey, let me just point this out to you because I think this is just a quick observation and worth discussing. See where these holes are? This
Yep.
to me looks spot on,
yep.
but it's so easy for this to look awful. Like, and it could be a few centimeters that way or inches.
Yep.
It could be that one that way or in or out. And I feel like on like your non 335 style guitars, when people do it, it's like it's real hit or miss. Sometimes it's nailed. This looks pretty spot on. So yeah, I like it. Looks like
And
on a Starch as well.
For anyone listening, yeah, exactly. That's a good part. For anyone listening, it's Cilia guitars, and they can go and check that out. I mean, yeah, and even his like vanilla stuff, like Strats and Tellys, are awesome. Oh, what is going on there? Are they
That's cool.
four individual pickups?
Yeah, it looks pretty cool actually.
And slanted in the right direction, right? Because the brighter sounding string has a darker pickup position.
Yeah, that's very cool.
Yo,
I
look at
reckon
this.
in a different life, I reckon I could sit and do inlays, Leon. It's a comment out.
I believe you are predisposed to such things, mate. You know what his guitars remind me of? Have you ever seen Nick Huber guitars?
No.
Uh,
Should I look him up?
you should look him
Do
up.
it, mate.
I reckon Charles is,
N-I-C-K?
if like Belman
Huber.
is the Aussie PRS.
Sweaty Startup, is that him?
Nik
Okay.
Huber.
What is Nick Huber Sweaty Startup? Let's come back to that later.
Let's come back to that one in bonus time.
Handcrafters. We'll save that one for the Patreon.
Yeah, exactly. Save that one
you
for
did
the
have the screen
OnlyFans.
shed. That was like the first. That was the first thing that popped up was with Nick with a CK, not with a K.
Right. So, one of my students has one of his
Look at
baritone things. Yeah,
Surf
mate,
Meister.
mate. Accept some cookies.
Oh, crikey! Oh yeah, sorry, mate. Go away.
He's got a Krautster, and yeah, it's sick. The Orca's like, you know what I mean? It's like a similar. Charles's stuff has a similar vibe of like it's its own thing, but it's also not too weird looking.
I gotta give this Dolphin 2 a shout out for having a very, very cool top on it.
Now,
I'm not really one for fancy tops, but and I don't know if I'd buy this, but to look at it is very, very, very cool.
yeah, the Huber stuff is those prices will make you cry. It's like PRS private stock
Okay.
kind of pricing. Yeah,
It's like those
they're up
Nags
there.
guitars. They look so
Yeah.
cool, but man, yeah, maybe one day.
I played a Steve Stevens Nags in
Oh, yeah.
Japan, and honestly, it's the closest thing I've ever played to my PRS SC245. It's like,
Oh.
have I accidentally also just become Steve Stevens the way I've become Mark Tremonti? Where it's like I like all the same things.
You need to start dressing like you did back in 2006, and then maybe
Yeah.
you can.
Then maybe I can do it. Have you seen his studio thing as well?
Yeah, where he's got like the two notes stuff in the rack for all his
Yeah,
guitars.
and he's got
Is that
like
one?
the semicircle of synths.
Oh, I don't remember that part. I'll have to.
Yeah, there's like he's got a lot of cool hardware synthesizers and the two notes and fractal and like Steve Stevens seems like he would like the opposite of one of these guys who's like, nah, I need like 1976 January spec Marshall on all my things and only this particular dude in Arizona who only builds for me can, he's like the opposite of that kind of my gear needs to be super custom. He's just like, give me all the sick gear, Yeah, I've got a signature Friedman. Yeah, I'll gig with an FM9. I don't care because I'm great.
When I was driving back from your place last night, we were like maybe 5-10 minutes from home, and Amy's just putting on music, and I was like, just driving along, and I look over at the thing, and it's like, why'd you put Piano Man on? She's like, what do you mean? I'm looking for that. Oh, it's not Billy Joel. Who's that other guy? Billy Idol. That's what I was looking for.
That's what I'm looking for. Oh, don't confuse your Billy Joels and your Billy Idols, kids.
To her credit, too, probably the first time she's ever put on something that sounds like that for her benefit, not just for mine. So
yeah. Look, mate, we've crossed the hour mark on here, and I feel like my uninformed Australian guitar history is totally depleted. But
let's get slammed in the comments.
Yeah, exactly. I'd love to hear in the comments anyone who's got an Australian-made guitar, current Australian guitar manufacturers who you think would be cool to have on the podcast and interview, because it's not the 90s or 2000s anymore where there's like two builders. It's the proliferation of knowledge and expertise, we've hit the saturation point where I think now if you're looking for like a one-off custom thing, before we go, mate, we need to like, do you have your bass here? Because I want to give Scott Wise a shout out.
It's really buried.
Really buried.
That's a tricky one.
But another one for acoustic guitars. Why don't you tell the story? Because I got to meet Scott last year. He actually introduced a clinic that I did at the Strings Attached Festival, and then we got talking about your bass. And
yeah, it's funny. So my old man, who was playing like a bunch of gigs back in, he's Indonesian, came over in like the mid '80s, and was doing a lot of just walking around your tables at restaurants and playing sort of things and singing. But it was like I think there were 3 acoustic guitar players, something in that regard, and this is where the guild comes from. But he decided he wanted to have an acoustic bass to play in the trio. So yeah, couldn't find one. I don't think they were that common back then. So he had one built by Scott, who was I think in like Fremantle or like that sort of way. This is back 1989, give or take a bit, sometime around there. So I believe it took a long time for this guitar to get built, and when it finally was made, it's a very cool instrument. It's huge. It's like
very much one of a kind. Hey,
yeah, it's hard to describe how big the body is because it's not like, it's more in line of like the like Mexican style huge basses,
mariachi style bass.
Yeah. Sometimes with the with acoustic basses I've played, because you've got one, don't you?
Somewhere.
Do you have an acoustic bass? I think you've got like a
Monterey or Johnson or some cheapo.
Yeah, the body on that is like similar to that of maybe like a tiny bit bigger than an acoustic guitar, like a normal.
It's a jumbo acoustic guitar body with a bass neck on it.
Yeah, and I've played a lot of acoustic basses that are like that. This one has significantly more size to it. So I wouldn't say it's as big as a double bass body, but it's massive.
Yeah.
And because of that, it sounds fucking awesome. Like it's got like,
it doesn't sound like anything else, hey.
Yeah, it's a really cool instrument. It's unfortunate because it's well, firstly it doesn't have a pickup in it, so, and I don't really want to go modding it to put a pickup in it. It's in a massive case, like massive case. I don't know if I could fit the case in my car, in my current car. Yeah, it would be a struggle because I can't put the seats down in this fucking car. It's a real pain in the ass. Anyway, Toyota Orion, what are you doing? But
exactly, get with the program.
Sounds really great. I've used it on a few sessions, and it used to live at Crank for like probably 5, 6, 7 years, and it got used by a bunch of players out there and like really great bass players, and they all commented on it as well. Not guys I was working with necessarily, but like jazz type of guys or people coming to use to do sessions. It feels more like a bass. It's got an interesting neck profile on it. It's quite slim for its size and quite wide, but it's really comfortable and it just moves the right amount of air. So I really like it. The tricky thing with acoustic bass, I was talking about this with a student not that long ago, like in the last couple of months, because they were doing an acoustic project and they were like, oh well, I'll put an acoustic bass on it. It's like, you don't really need to do that. There's not a huge place for acoustic bass in music. Like, not to say you can't do it, but it's not like, I don't know, it doesn't really seem to fit a spot. In a normal P bass or something works great in a, if you're doing an acoustic-y sort of thing. Or
how many of those MTV Unplugged things are there where someone's just playing bass guitar, like a P bass or a J bass, and it's fine? But sometimes people have an acoustic bass, and you're like, you don't need to do this, Gene Simmons.
Yeah, like I said, upright bass kind of work if you're going to bring anything like that. Seems to be more of an appropriate.
But that's a different skill set, right?
Yeah, your bass player in your rock band can't play that, so just play a. Yeah, I don't know, but this thing, man, I like it. I really like playing it. It's the thing I learned how to play bass on, sort of. One of the things like very early on. So yeah, because it's so big, it's I don't think there'd be space on any of my guitar hangers for it. It used to have its own hook. But I put it back in the case, and the case is like just away because it just takes up so much space. Yeah. It's a shame. But maybe one day I'll drag it out again and try and shoehorn it into some tracks.
But it was cool speaking to Scott about it. He was like, "Oh, I remember that," and he had some kind of anecdotes and things like that about your dad, which were pretty nice. It was really really interesting. like a
Yeah.
little piece of history.
I think it was the first one he made.
Yeah.
So, and I don't know how many he's made since then, but yeah, shout out to you, Scott. Next, because he's in Margs, hey?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd like to go down and take the bass, like if provided I can fit it in the car, and say, hey, have a look at this. It probably needs.
What you're
going to
do is you're going to buy a truck, you're going to put the base on the truck, and then spend a week just trekking down there. Then you can sleep in the truck. So, but yeah, that was one thing that I did want to cover on here. But other than that, for anyone listening or watching, let us know about your experiences with Australian-made guitars. If you're overseas and you've got an Australian-made guitar, we'd also really love to hear that. And also, if you're on my Discord, come in and post your photos and things like that. Troy, before we go, I'm just going to do a very quick roundup, okay? So, strictly electric guitars, what sort of person plays a Maton Master sound?
What sort of person? Someone in an indie rock band?
Okay, what about a Cole Clark acoustic guitar?
You're working like workhorse, gonna do 3 gigs in a weekend solo person.
And how much like Cog does the band sound like for the guy who owns a Belman? Because it's going to be a prog dude, right?
Yeah. I don't know, like A+. What scale do you want to use? 95% chance of.
Yeah, exactly. And I feel like I should at least squeeze a few more of these out. But I think I've done myself in with that Belman one. There was an ABC thing about Cole Clark guitars as well. I think it's online. So if you search up Cole Clark ABC, and that's what's the last one? What's the best Skid Row album?
Oh, the first one.
Correct. Excellent. And what's the best Lynch Mob album?
Oh, probably the Wicked Sensation.
Yeah.
I don't care about Skid Row. I listened to it for probably about 3 months in 2004, and I was like, this is not for me. But Wicked Sensation, I'll put on all the time.
So there you go. Go and listen to some King's X. Go and listen to some Lynch Mob. Go and listen to KXM if you don't have the time.
Some Winger.
Go listen to some Winger and enjoy your time on Earth. This has been the Gear Podcast. We love you. Take it easy.
Peace. Theme song is gonna sound like Creed.
Yeah.